Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Michelle. This is Michelle Reads YA. Happy New Year! Hopefully 2021 is better than 2020. We can only hope. Okay, so my first video of 2021 is going to be my favorite books that I read in 2020. I read 100, hopefully as I'm filming this, it's December 31st, so hopefully I'm going to finish this one book, and I have read 168 books this year. I have narrowed it down to my top 10 books that I read this year, so let's just get into it. The first book I have was quite a surprise, and it's actually a graphic novel, and I am not a big graphic novel reader, so I saw this one going around on book Twitter and was really interested in it, and that is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. I actually read Radio Silence by Alice Oseman and did not like it, so I think I'm like one of the 10 people in the whole world who doesn't like Radio Silence. However, I loved Heartstopper. I was in a bit of a reading slump when I decided to pick this up, and it was a great idea because I finished it in about 45 minutes. I was watching my son and reading it, so it was a great time. This is the story of Charlie and Nick. Charlie is at a school and he is out, he's gay, and he meets Nick and they play on the same rugby team and they start falling for each other, and it's just adorable. And I have yet to read the second installment. I have it, I own it, I can see it right now. Not really, I don't have my glasses on, but you know what I mean. So I'm very excited to get to it. I think fourth one is coming out in 2021, so I really have some catching up to do, but this was just like feel good. I was just like smiling like an idiot the whole time I was reading it, and the illustrations are beautiful, so I highly suggest this one. It's queer, it's happy, it's what I want when I want to read queer books, so super excited. This was just so feel good. I loved it so much. I highly recommend this graphic novel. The next book is one of two nonfiction books that are on this list, and I cannot believe that I am having any kind of nonfiction on this list, but here we go. Let's go with the first one. This is White Rage by Carol Anderson. This book was amazing. I read this after the murder of George Floyd, so I believe it was the beginning of June, and how do I describe it? It was amazing, it was disheartening, it was eye-opening, it was all of those things. So I read this for the Blackout Buddy Read, I believe that's what it was called, and it was this one and White Fragility, and this one was just so much better. It's actually written by a black woman, so like, makes sense. I think what I took out most from this book that I just haven't been able to let go of is that all of this stuff we should have learned in school, and I learned none of this in school. It was very disheartening to know that. Also, at the end of this book, Carol Anderson talks about voter suppression in America, and she literally talks about county that I live in North Carolina, and how bad the voter suppression was in 2016. And 2016 was the first year that I voted in Guilford County and did not know any of this. So it was just so eye-opening, disheartening, but such a good read. I recommend this to absolutely everyone, and even if you're not a nonfiction reader like me, I'm not a nonfiction reader. I am mostly YA, so it was just one of the best books I read this year. I highly recommend it to everyone. It was an instant 5 stars. I'll probably read it every year. The next nonfiction book on my list is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. I listened to this on audiobook, and it was so hard to listen to, but one of the best things I listened to this year. She starts off this book when she wakes up in the hospital after her assault, and it just goes from there, and she is very candid about her depression that she went through after her assault and being, you know, at the trial of Brock Turner, and it was a devastating read, but it was so important, and I don't own it. I haven't bought it, and I don't know why, but I need it on my shelves, and I just know it's something that, even though it's so hard to read, it's something that's so important, and it's something that I want to own and be able to go back to. But I just commend Chanel Miller for everything she's done. She did not have to come forward. She could have stayed Jane Doe. So it was so good, and I think about it a lot, and it really is gruesome. Like, she really goes into her assault very vividly, and it was a lot, but it was also in a strange way beautiful because she's telling her story the way she wants to tell it. So I just thought it was good all around. It was good. The next book I have on my list is You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. I loved this book so much. This one, just like Heartstopper, just put me in such a freaking good mood, and that's what I want to be in when I read YA contemporary, so that's where I was. This is the story of Liz Lightly. She is running for prom queen so she can get a scholarship to go to college, and she is gay, which is great, and there is a relationship in this book, and it has to do with race and queerness and just like everyday life as a senior in high school, and I just really like this, and the politics of like prom, and I just finished it and I just like felt lighter. It was so good, and that's all I want. I want to read and have a good time. So this did exactly that. I cannot wait for Leah Johnson's next book. I am more than likely going to pre-order that, but I gave this 5 stars. It took me maybe a day to finish it, and it was just so worth it and so good. The next book on my list is a book that I read for book club, and my book club is notorious for like not picking good books to read. No offense, book club. But this one was good, and it made my list this year, and that is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I don't think I gave this the full 5 stars. I believe I gave it 4.5 stars, which is pretty good for me because I'm a pretty mean reader, critiquer, reviewer. So yeah, but this is the story of Pip, who is for her senior project going and trying to go and see if a local murder was like solved correctly, and she goes and teams up with the murderer's brother, and they try to clear his name basically, and it reminded me a lot of the Adnan Syed podcast, which happened really close to my hometown, so like it took me back to that and all this and that, and it was such a fast read and very good. Someone in my book club mentioned that it was a lot of white saviorness, and I definitely agree with her, which is probably why it didn't get the full 5 stars, because she mentioned that and then that's all I could see. But all in all, I really enjoyed this book. I just feel like I'm so starved for YA mystery, and this was just such a good one, and I have the sequel on my shelf and I just can't wait to get to it. The next book on my list is Slay by Brittany Morris. I read this in the beginning of the year when I was on a booktube hiatus, so I don't think I've ever talked about this on my channel, so here we go. I read this, I believe, in February, and this was gifted to me by Alana, and I will put her down below. But basically I started reading this and I texted her and I was like, hey, did you like this? Because I can't get into the writing, and I could not get into this writing style in the beginning. It took me like 50 pages or so. I am just impatient, but I absolutely love this. So Kiara is an honors student, and she has made her own virtual reality world just for Black people, where you have to like have a password to get into this world, and then someone who plays the game is murdered for something in the game, and then it turns into this huge thing, and she is only 17 in high school and she has to deal with it, and it was amazing. It was so fast-paced. I don't know much about virtual reality and video games in general, but I thought it was really realistic, and I thought the writing was good. It took me a second to get into it, but once I was into this world, I was into it hardcore. I don't know if I gave it the full 5 stars. It was really close, but it's something that I can't stop thinking about, even though I read it all the way back in February. So I highly suggest this book. It was amazing. The next book on my list is The How and the Why by Cynthia Hand. This, so good. I have mentioned this before in my favorite quiet YA books video, and I will link that up above, but I loved this book so much, and a lot of Cynthia Hand's books are instant 5 stars for me, and she is very quiet in the YA contemporary world, and I wish more people knew about her, but this story is about adoption, and it takes place in like 2 separate timelines. So the mother of the adopted girl, like 16 years ago, is writing letters to her baby she's going to give up, and then it's Cassie, who is the one who was adopted in the real world now, and it was beautiful. I just really liked it, and I like stories in YA about adoption, and it was so well written, and it deals with adoption and race and just family in general, and I really like this one, and if more people could read it so I could talk about it with you, that would be great. Okay. The next book on my list is the first 5-star read I had in 2020 that wasn't a reread, and that is Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno. I was supposed to read this all the way back in 2019 for a video, and then was in the worst reading slump of my entire life and finally picked it up. So this story is about twins who live on a magical island, and basically they're witches and they have powers, and the one twin doesn't seem to have her power yet, and she doesn't know why, and then something happens to her twin sister, and there's a lot going on in this book, but it deals with sexual assault in a way that was so different than anything I'd ever read before, and it definitely does deal with magical realism, but in just a beautiful way, and I don't know why it took me so long to read this. I think a lot of the times I am afraid of magical realism because it gets a little weird, and I just like my contemporaries to stay in contemporary world. So no, this was amazing. It was an instant 5-star, and I just think the way Katrina Leno dealt with talking about sexual assault, she did it in such a beautiful way. It's not easy, and she did it great. So highly suggest this book if you like contemporary with just like a sprinkle of magical realism, because it was amazing. We're almost done. So the second to last book on my list is my almost favorite book of the year, but one book beat it out, and that is Today, Tonight, Tomorrow by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I read this as an ARC on my phone. I'm literally like walking around my baby to try to put him for his nap, and I'm on my phone reading this so freaking fast, and finished it and was stupid happy and bought it right away. This was my first Rachel Lynn Solomon, not my last. I'm gonna go back to her backlist YA books. She has a new YA book coming out in 2021, and I read her new adult book that is coming out in January, so I've been on a Rachel Lynn Solomon roll after this one. This is the story of Rowan and Neil, who have been rivals their entire school career, and it's the last day of school, and they're both up for valedictorian. This takes place in 24 hours. I love books that take place in 24 hours. They're amazing. It's so good. This is Enemies to Lovers. It was so fucking cute. It was so cute. It just put me, once again, like You Should See Me in a Crown, just put me in a freaking good mood. That's what I want. I'm in such a good mood talking about this book, just like thinking about it. Anyway, Rachel Lynn Solomon is now an auto-buy author. I love this book so freaking much, and this is one that just like kind of in 2020 just scooted by, and I don't want it to. So if you like cheesy YA contemporary romance taking place in one day, this is for you. Please read this. It was so cute. Okay, and then absolutely, hands down, my favorite book of 2020 is one that I read in February, and I wasn't on BookTube, but I've talked about it on my channel before. I have recommended this book to literally everyone I know that reads. My book club, most of my book club has picked it up, and they loved it as well, so good job me. I listened to this on audiobook, and it was one of the first audiobooks I read this year and was like, wow, I love audiobooks. So thank you to this book. But none of the other books I have read this year has compared to this book, and that is Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. So if Today, Tonight, Tomorrow was like a feel-good, happy, so glad I read this book is the complete opposite. This book is dark. This book is not pretty, but it is so good. So This book is about Claudia, whose best friend Monday goes missing, and she feels like she is the only one who cares about what happened to Monday, why Monday's not been in school, why Monday has not been at her house, why Monday's mom doesn't care about where Monday is, and Claudia basically goes and does everything she needs to do to try to find her. And then in the middle of the book, there is the biggest twist I have read almost in any book ever, and it changes the whole story, and amazing. I cannot stop thinking about this book. I want to reread it, and I definitely am in 2021 because it was just an amazing experience the first time I read it. So I cannot recommend this book enough. Seriously, anytime anyone has been like, hey, I need a recommendation for a book, Monday's not coming. Trigger warnings for so many things. It is gruesome. It's not pretty. This is not a pretty book, but it's important. It's based on real things that happen to missing girls in and around the DC area, so that's important. And also the writing is just amazing, and if you're looking for a good audiobook, I highly recommend this audiobook as well. I can't say enough good things about this book. It just blew me away. I read this all the way back in February and just could not find a book that measured up to this one. If I could give it 6 stars, I would. So just amazing. Amazing. So those are the 10 books I read in 2020 that were my favorites. I am hoping for 2021 to have even more favorites and just really picking up books that I absolutely think I'm going to like and not really wasting my time on books that aren't for me. So yeah, thanks for watching my video. See you in my next one. Bye!